Welcome all to Killian Flinn's fictional stories. This story will take your mind on a brain-twisting venture. Are you ready? Excellent. Here's The Man Who Wasn't There by Killian Flinn. Genre: brain twister, psychological thriller, surreal suspense. Lucas Venn opened his eyes to the sound of birds that didn't sing like birds. They chirped in patterns, 3 short, 1 long, over and over, like they were tapping a message in some old, forgotten code. The sky above him was a washed-out green, cloudless, still. His head rested on something soft, damp grass. He could feel each blade pricking his cheek. He sat up slowly, heart thudding. He didn't know where he was, or who he was. Not really. He knew his name, Lucas. Lucas Venn. He said it out loud. Lucas Venn. It sounded correct, like a word that fit, but it didn't come with memories. No parents, no friends, no house, just the name and the understanding that he was not where he was supposed to be. The town was small. He stood in the center of what might have once been a park. Overgrown hedges, a cracked cement path looping around a dry fountain, benches that tilted like they were bored with sitting still. No people, but everything was maintained. No trash, no rot, just silent, eerie preservation, like a photograph someone had kept too long in the sun. Lucas walked to the nearest street. No cars. A breeze picked up, warm and thick like someone exhaling directly behind him. He spun. Nothing. Just empty windows staring back at him. Then a sound. Footsteps. He turned sharply. A woman rounded the corner. Mid-30s. Blonde hair tied in a tight knot. She wore a blue dress and white sneakers, and smiled like she had been expecting him. "There you are," she said brightly. "Lucas, you're late." He blinked. "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" She laughed. "Very funny." She kept walking, brushing past him like they were mid-conversation, and added without looking back, "You'll want to get inside before the rerun starts." "The run," he called. She waved vaguely. "You always forget." He stared after her, throat dry. None of this felt right. He checked his pockets. Empty. No phone. No wallet. No keys. Nothing. He looked at his hands. Normal. Unscarred. He rubbed his face. Stubble. Not fresh. Maybe 3 or 4 days of growth. He didn't feel hungry or tired. He felt like time had tripped and fallen without making a sound. He walked toward the next block. The buildings were pristine, but off. The signs on shops looked handwritten. There were no logos, just vague names like food place and shoes here. The post office had a single mailbox. The flag was always up, even though the slot was empty. He passed a bus stop. The scheduled board read, Monday through Monday, Monday through Monday. The town was looping. It had the shell of a real place, but the soul was missing. Or maybe he was. Then he saw it. A mailbox. The name on it read, Venn L. His name. He froze. The house it stood in front of was a single-story ranch, pale green siding, red door. The lawn was trimmed in perfect lines. The porch light was on, even though it was full daylight. He approached slowly. Up the walkway. 3 concrete steps. The front door opened before he knocked. A man stood there. Older. Heavy set. Thinning hair. Smile tight. "You're home," the man said. Lucas stepped back. "Do I know you?" The man didn't blink. "Come in, son." "I'm not your son." "You always say that at first." Lucas backed away and turned. The street was suddenly different. The cracks in the pavement were gone. The trees had shifted. The sun had moved slightly, too slightly, like a bad edit in a video. He looked back at the man. He was gone. The door was shut. No one had closed it. Lucas walked faster. The town felt more alive now, but not in a good way, like it had noticed him noticing. He returned to the fountain. The water was running now. He hadn't heard it turn on. The birds still chirped the same pattern. 3 short, 1 long. 3 short, 1 long. He crouched and dipped a hand into the fountain. The water was warm. Too warm. Almost body temperature. He stood and turned to leave, and saw himself, standing across the park. Same clothes. Same face. Same wide, confused eyes. The other Lucas tilted his head, then walked away, disappearing behind a line of hedges. Lucas ran after him, tore around the hedge line, and found only open air. No one there. Just a single black umbrella lying on the ground, perfectly dry. He picked it up. There was a name etched into the handle. L. Venn. He was being followed. No, duplicated. Something was copying him. Learning. Responding. Maybe even correcting. He stood still, listened. A faint static hiss filled the air, almost too soft to notice. The birds had stopped. He looked up at the sky again. It was no longer green. It was orange now. A deep, impossible orange. And the sun. There were two of them, side by side, staring back. Lucas turned and ran. No direction, just away. He passed the same house again. Same mailbox. Same red door. It wasn't just that the town was looping. It was watching him loop. When he finally stopped running, he was back in the center of the park. He dropped to his knees, gasping. The fountain was gone. So were the benches. Now there was a mirror, 7 feet tall, standing alone in the grass. He approached it slowly, heart thundering, looked into it, and saw nothing. No reflection, just black. Then slowly, another version of him stepped into frame, smiled, and whispered, "You forgot again, didn't you?" Lucas didn't move. His breath fogged the glass. Even though the air wasn't cold, the man in the mirror, him, but not him, stood perfectly still, smiling, watching, like someone seeing a fish finally understand the tank. Lucas reached out, fingers trembling, touched the surface. It was warm. The glass flexed, just slightly, like skin. The other Lucas leaned in. "It always starts here." His voice didn't come from the mirror. It came from inside Lucas's head, a whisper behind the ears, a memory he didn't recognize. "You always forget, and we always find you." Lucas stumbled backward. The mirror rippled. The reflection stayed, then blinked out. Gone. Only his own face stared back now. Pale, terrified, alone. He spun away and fled the park again, past the same trees, the same bent bench, the same Warp Street signs. He needed to leave. There had to be a way out. A border, a wall, something. He ran for what felt like miles, until the ground turned to gravel, then to dirt, then to cracked asphalt again. And the sign came into view. "Welcome to Fox's Hollow. Population, infinity." He blinked. That wasn't what it said earlier, was it? He couldn't remember. He turned around. The path behind him was gone, replaced by trees. Silent. Watching. He stepped backward and bumped into someone. He whirled. A woman stood there. Older. Gray hair in a braid. Wrinkled eyes. Holding a folded newspaper. "You're new again," she said. Lucas stepped back. "Again?" She nodded. "They never tell you. That's the rule. You have to figure it out for yourself." "Figure what out?" The woman shrugged. "Where you are, who you are, what you were. They only tell you at the end, if you last long enough." Lucas looked down at the paper. She handed it to him. Front page. Local man found dead outside abandoned complex. Authorities still searching for identification. No wallet, no phone. Only item found, black umbrella. He froze. The photo was grainy, but the man's face, his face, staring back from a crime scene photo. He looked up. "Is this a dream?" The woman smiled sadly. "No, dreams end." She turned and walked into the trees, disappeared without a sound. Lucas dropped the paper. It vanished before it hit the ground. The sun had returned to yellow. Only one now, as if the world were correcting itself, or pretending to. He sat on a stone wall and tried to breathe. "If I'm dead, is this purgatory?" A voice beside him said. "Not quite." He turned. It was himself again, the other Lucas. Same clothes, same face, same scar over the left eyebrow. Except, Lucas didn't have a scar. "What are you?" he asked. The other Lucas grinned. "What aren't you?" He circled him slowly. "You're a memory that won't close. A file that won't delete. You're what's left when someone can't forget you, but doesn't want to remember either." Lucas shook his head. No, I'm real." "Are you?" The other Lucas leaned closer. "Then tell me your mother's name. Your address. First kiss. Anything." Lucas opened his mouth and froze. Nothing came. Nothing at all. The other Lucas leaned back. Exactly. Suddenly, Lucas was alone again. No footsteps. No sound. Just empty space where a shadow should have been. He stood, stumbled toward a building with lights in the window. The diner. Food place stenciled above the door. He pushed inside. A bell chimed. The waitress behind the counter looked up and smiled. "You're early this time." Lucas approached slowly. "You know me?" She nodded. "I've served you eggs for 17 loops." He sat. "What loop is this?" She refilled a coffee pot. "Depends who you ask. Some of us keep count. Others let it slide. You? You reset the most." "Why?" "Too stubborn," she said. "Won't let go." She poured coffee. He didn't ask for it. He didn't have to. She handed him a folded napkin. He opened it. Inside was a single phrase. "Don't trust your voice." His throat tightened. He whispered, "What does that mean?" The waitress tilted her head. "You'll find out." Then she flickered, like a glitch. Her face twisted for half a second, then returned to normal. "Bathrooms out back. Careful in the mirror." Lucas stood, walked to the restroom. It was small, clean. No mirror over the sink. Just a blank wall. He stared at it, then reached out, pressed his palm to it, and it felt soft, warm, like breath under skin. A whisper behind him. "Ready now?" He turned. No one there. But the air was humming. The wall pulsed beneath his fingers, and behind his eyes. He could see the diner again, but he wasn't in it. He was watching himself, through the window, sitting at the counter, drinking coffee, looping. The hum grew louder, then quiet, then words. "You are the rerun." Lucas staggered back from the wall, heart pounding. The air smelled like burnt wires and salt. He looked around. The restroom was gone. He now stood in an empty warehouse, concrete stretching in all directions. No windows, no doors, just a flat, white ceiling pulsing with a faint light. "Where am I?" he asked. The words didn't echo. They didn't even seem to land. Then, a voice replied, "You're still in the diner, but also not." He turned. A man in a gray suit stood at the edge of the room. No face, just smooth skin where eyes and mouth should be. He held a clipboard, tapped it twice with a finger. Subject V13. Instability has increased. Memory collapse at 17%. Paradox drift accelerating. Lucas backed away. "What are you talking about?" The figure stepped closer. "You're misfiled. Should have been processed during initial fold. But you stayed. Too curious. Too self-aware." Lucas shook his head. "I don't understand." The figure didn't pause. "You were part of a memory extraction experiment. Emotional residue loop. That's why the town repeats. That's why the people glitch. It's all fragments. You're not supposed to still be running." Lucas clutched his head. "This isn't real." The voice was suddenly right behind him. "Reality is a contract between minds. Yours has defaulted." He turned. The man was gone, but the warehouse now had walls, each one covered in television screens. And each screen showed him different versions. One walking the park loop, one staring at a mirror, one crying in a hospital room, and one flatlined in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines. Lucas dropped to his knees. The screens began to buzz. Static, then voices. Dozens of them. All versions of himself. I remember her face. It wasn't my fault. The pills didn't work. I wanted to forget. I needed to stay. He covered his ears. "Shut up. Shut up." The light snapped off. Darkness. Silence. Then, the sound of water dripping. 1, 2, 3. Long. 3 short, 1 long. The same bird code. He stood. A mirror appeared before him. Again. But this one didn't reflect anything. It played a video. Grainy. A hospital room. A doctor speaking to a woman with red eyes and trembling hands. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Venn. We did everything we could. He lost too much oxygen. If he ever wakes up, he'll never be himself again." The woman sobbed. Lucas pressed his hand to the glass. "Who was she?" he whispered. His voice cracked. From behind, the suited man spoke again. "That was the anchor. The guilt tether. Your loop exists because of her. You refused to let go. So the system fragmented. You built your own trap." Lucas turned. "What do you mean, system? What are you?" The figure paused, then stepped into the light. The smooth face shimmered, briefly forming Lucas's own. "I'm you. The version that accepted. I ended. You lingered." Lucas stumbled back. "Then help me." The other him shook its head. "That's the test. The loop doesn't break until you stop asking. Until you stop running." The lights flared again. The warehouse became the park. He stood beside the fountain. A reflection swirled in the water. But it wasn't him. It was the woman, crying. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and vanished. Lucas fell to his knees. His hands shook. He let the silence settle. Let the birds stop. Let the water drip. He didn't speak. Didn't move. Just sat. For the first time. Really still. And the loop paused. Not broke. Not shattered. But it paused. A new voice came. Almost there. The sky cracked above him. A single tear in the fabric. Light spilled through like a rip in a curtain. And through it, a hospital monitor beeped. Soft. Steady. Alive. Then it faded. And the town reset again. The welcome sign blinked into place. The diner lights came on. The woman walked past with the same smile. But this time, as she passed him, she whispered, "You remembered something, didn't you?" Lucas nodded. Once. And the air shifted. The moment she whispered it. "You remembered something, didn't you?" The breeze changed direction. The air felt less like air and more like breath. Warm. Intentional. Lucas didn't answer, but his silence was a reply, and the world responded. The birds began singing again. Only now, their song wasn't code. It was words. Faint. Strung together through sound. Let go, let go. The message embedded in nature. Implanted in the loop. Implanted in him. Lucas walked slowly through town. He stopped noticing the inconsistencies. Stopped reacting to the repeating people. Instead, he watched what changed. Tiny things. The clouds moved differently. The sun pulsed. Just once. As if glitching back to an earlier state. The cat on the bookstore window sill blinked for the first time. And someone had scratched a message into the post office door. You were real. Then you weren't. Now you choose. He passed the house again. The one with the red door. His house. He didn't knock. Didn't go in. Just looked at the mailbox. Venn L. Same as always. Except today, a single envelope sat inside. No stamp. No return address. He pulled it out and opened it. Inside, a photograph. It was him. Younger. Smiling. Beside a woman. Same one from the hospital video. They were standing in front of a different house. Sunset behind them. The photo was folded. When he unfolded it fully, something else fell out. A slip of paper. On it, in handwriting he recognized but couldn't name. Her name was Anna. The moment he read it aloud, the town bent. The ground tilted. The sky rippled like cloth. And Lucas dropped to one knee, head spinning. He had remembered something. Truly remembered. And the system reacted like a virus detecting foreign code. The man in the gray suit appeared again. Only now, his skin flickered. Half smooth, half Lucas. You weren't supposed to get that far. Lucas stood. His voice steady. I loved her. The figure winced, like the words were knives. We tried to keep it vague. Abstract. Emotional pain is allowed. Direct memory isn't. It creates instability. Lucas stepped forward. You built this. The man nodded. You did. Subconsciously. With help. We just monitor the construct. The park returned. This time it was night. Stars hung in the sky, too close and too still. The mirror stood at the fountain's center again. But it was broken now. Cracked down the center. Flickering. Like it was deciding what to reflect. Lucas looked into it. And saw the hospital bed again. Himself. Machines beeping. Anna asleep in a chair beside him. Holding his hand. Mouthing something in her sleep. The reflection changed. He was in a car. It was raining. Headlights. Skid. Sound. A moment of light. Then pain. Then silence. The loop had begun here. That moment. The accident. The regret. The refusal to let go. He was in the diner again. The waitress smiled softly. One more rerun left, she said. He nodded. She placed a small candle on the counter. If you remember everything this time, she whispered, you can choose. Lucas turned. Walked outside. It wasn't the same town anymore. Now it was a collision of all versions. Overlapping timelines. A marching band walked through the bakery. Rain fell upward from the grass. Children with blurred faces played hopscotch in the air. And everyone whispered the same word. Anna. Lucas stood in the middle of it all. He closed his eyes. And remembered. The night. The fight. The argument. The guilt. He had stormed out. She had called after him. He'd driven too fast. Didn't see the curve. Didn't see the truck. And then, just darkness. And now this. A loop made of his refusal to face it. He opened his eyes. The town had stopped moving. People frozen mid-step. Rain frozen mid-fall. Only the mirror in the park still moved. Now reflecting Anna. Smiling. Real. Warm. Waiting. A doorway formed. Where the mirror had stood. She was inside it. Hand outstretched. Are you ready now? She asked. Lucas nodded. Stepped forward. And everything went silent. Lucas stepped through the mirror. And it wasn't glass. It wasn't even solid. It was thought. Dense and heavy. Like walking through a page of a book you weren't supposed to read. The temperature changed instantly. The smell of hospital disinfectant returned. So did the hum of fluorescent lights. And then, Anna. Standing there. Not younger. Not idealized. Just her. Exactly as she had been. Hair unbrushed. Redness under her eyes. Hands shaking slightly as she stared at him. "Lucas," she whispered. Her voice cracked. Lucas tried to speak. His throat burned. His chest ached. His entire body felt like glass trying not to shatter. "I'm sorry," he said. His voice sounded real. Present. Anna stepped forward, placed a hand on his chest. "You never forgave yourself." Lucas shook his head. "I couldn't." She nodded gently. "But I did. That night. The moment they told me. I forgave you. I loved you." He closed his eyes. Tears slid down without effort. He had no more strength to hold them. She guided him to a bench that didn't exist. But now it did. Because she needed it to. Because he believed in it. They sat in silence for what felt like time finally passing. No loops. No birds repeating code. No glitching diners or melting skies. Just two people, breathing in the same moment. She spoke softly. "You've been here for 8 years." Lucas blinked. "That long?" She nodded. "Your body lives. But you stopped living. You locked yourself in a memory palace of guilt." Lucas looked around. Everything was still. The mirror was gone. The bench now faced a window looking out over a still lake. It was sunset, the water unmoving. Anna whispered, "You can wake up now, if you're ready." Lucas wanted to say yes, but a part of him hesitated. What would be waiting for him on the other side? No her. No perfect stillness. No looping comfort of the same regrets, day after day. Just pain. Recovery. An empty house. Possibly a wheelchair. Definitely no more Anna. Not like this. He looked at her. "Will I see you again?" She smiled, and the world around them brightened just a little. Not like this. But yes. Eventually. In the right way. The light over the lake grew stronger. It shimmered like glass warming from beneath. The whole landscape began to fade, like a drawing being slowly erased. She stood, held out her hand. "Say goodbye to the loop." Lucas took her hand and said it aloud. "Goodbye." He opened his eyes and saw a ceiling. Plain. White. Real. Not flickering. Not melting. Just there. The scent of antiseptic filled his nostrils. A monitor beeped nearby. Slow. Steady. Alive. A nurse gasped. Footsteps rushed in. Voices blurred and buzzed. Lucas blinked. The light hurt. His chest rose and fell with effort. But he was here. Back. The man who wasn't there was here again. And somewhere, deep in a part of himself that would never be touched again, he heard Anna's voice one last time. "Live for both of us." The hospital room smelled like bleach and loneliness. Lucas lay still, muscles trembling, heart thudding like it had only just remembered how to beat. Machines beeped rhythmically beside him. A nurse adjusted something on a drip and gave him a warm smile. "You're a miracle, Mr. Venn. 8 years in a coma, and just like that, here you are." Her voice was kind, human. Lucas tried to speak, but only rasped air. She handed him ice chips. He let them melt in his mouth, closing his eyes. Anna's voice lingered in the back of his mind. "Live for both of us." The nurse stepped out. Lucas turned his head slightly. The window was open. Outside, the city moved like a foreign language. Too fast. Too bright. Too intentional. He blinked hard, then frowned. There were no reflections in the glass. Just sky. No room. No him. He buzzed for the nurse. She returned with a doctor, who smiled too wide. "Welcome back, Mr. Venn. You gave us quite a scare." Lucas forced a breath. "Mirror," he rasped. "Bring me a mirror." The nurse paused, then slowly nodded. Left. Returned moments later with a compact mirror. She handed it to him gently. He looked in and saw nothing. Just black. The nurse gasped. Tried to take the mirror. Lucas held on. The blackness shifted. And then, his own reflection. Slowly surfacing from the dark, like something dredged from the bottom of a lake. But it blinked before he did. Lucas dropped the mirror. It shattered on the tile. The doctor and nurse rushed forward. He waved them off, heart racing. What if the loop hadn't ended? What if he'd only transitioned into another version? What if this reality, this hospital, was just another tier of illusion? They transferred him to rehab the next week. The staff were kind. Too kind. Like actors. Like they knew. He was monitored constantly. Visitors were restricted. No phone. No television. Every reflection was removed from his room. He asked about Anna. No one knew who she was. He asked about the car accident. They said he'd suffered a seizure. At work. Collapsed. No crash. No hospital bed. No funeral. Lucas sat by the window each night, waiting for the world to crack, for the sky to ripple, for a waitress to offer him coffee again. But nothing came. Just silence. Just birds. And sometimes, they still chirped in code. 3 short, 1 long. He started noticing things. The nurses never blinked in unison. The hallway outside his room looped. People walked by in the same pattern every 10 minutes. And when he closed his eyes, he could still feel the hum. That frequency beneath existence. The one that said, "We're still watching." One day, a new patient was wheeled into his therapy group. Heavy set, bald, bandaged hands. Lucas froze. It was the man from the house. Red door. Mailbox with his name. The man looked up, smiled. "Nice to see you again, son." Lucas stood, chair crashing behind him. The room spun. The therapist called for order. But the man just watched him calmly. "You never really left." Lucas was moved to isolation. They said it was a mental health flare-up, that he was adjusting to re-entry. But he knew better. They were controlling the simulation, tightening it, caging the memory rebel. The next night, someone slipped something under his door. A folded page torn from a book. It read, "If you're reading this, you're still inside. Find the switch." Lucas turned the paper over. Nothing else. No signature. No clue. He held it to the light. An invisible ink line slowly appeared. A symbol. The mirror. Cracked down the middle. He didn't sleep that night. Just stared at the wall, mapping the rhythm of the facility's power cycles. The whirring hums. The flickering vents. And somewhere behind it all, the same static as before. Soft. Hidden. Waiting for him to remember more. He whispered Anna's name. Felt the room pulse. The shadows in the corners twitched. Not visibly, but internally, like they heard it too. And then the wall behind his bed breathed. The wall behind his bed exhaled. Not like air conditioning, like lungs. Lucas felt the subtle push of air against his cheek. He didn't move, didn't speak. He pressed his hand flat to the plaster. Warm, softer than it should be. It pulsed, like a heartbeat inside a wall. He whispered, "Where's the switch?" Nothing. Then a single crack appeared in the wall. Hairline, just wide enough to suggest an opening. He leaned forward, looked through. Nothing but black. But he heard something, breathing on the other side. And a whisper that sounded exactly like his own voice. "You're so close." The next morning, the wall was solid again. No crack, no trace. But his palms still smelled like dust. He asked to speak with the new patient, the man from the house. The nurses said, "There's no one here by that name." He searched the therapy logs. His name wasn't listed. The chair he sat in, bolted to the floor, unmoved, unoccupied, like he'd never been there, like none of it had. At lunch, Lucas stared into the stainless steel surface of his spoon. No reflection, just a void. They were monitoring him again. He knew it. The orderly's shoes squeaked the same pattern in the hall. The elevator dinged in exact 5-minute intervals. Every morning, the same nurse entered at 7:15 a.m., her smile never reaching her eyes. And when she placed his tray down, the same phrase always followed. "Start your day with strength." Not once had it changed. Lucas scraped the bottom of his tray one day and found a message burned faintly into the plastic. "Don't eat the eggs." He froze, lifted the lid. No eggs, only a sticky gray mush. He didn't eat anything that day. That night, he returned to the wall, pressed his palm against it, waited, waited. The crack came again, and with it, a light. Faint, flickering, like a candle dying behind fogged glass. He pushed harder. The wall bent inward, then cracked open like a book spine. And behind it, stairs, rusting iron, leading down. He stepped through, shut the wall behind him. Everything went dark. The only sound was his own breath and the distant sound of something humming. A deep, low frequency, like a generator, or a brain skin looped through an amplifier. He descended, step after step. Rust flaked under his shoes. The air grew warmer, then colder, then absent. At the bottom, a corridor, metal walls, soft lights blinking on with each step, as if his presence triggered them. No signs, no guards, only a door, heavy, unlabeled, locked with a fingerprint scanner. He hesitated, held up his hand. The scanner beeped once and turned green. The door opened. Inside, mirrors, dozens, maybe hundreds, lining the walls, the ceiling, the floor. Each one showed a version of him, sleeping, screaming, drowning, laughing, kissing Anna, burying Anna, erasing Anna. He stood in the center. One mirror cracked. The reflection inside raised a hand, and it moved before Lucas did. He backed away, The reflection stepped forward. "This is where we keep you," it said. "This is where we keep you," it said. Lucas shook his head. "I woke up. I made it out." The reflection tilted its head. "Did you?" The lights flickered. All mirrors now reflected the same thing. Lucas in a hospital bed, eyes open, smiling. But behind the eyes, nothing. A nurse whispered into his ear, "You've made excellent progress, Mr. Venn." The reflection of Lucas didn't respond, just stared, blank, alive, but not there. The real Lucas turned, sprinted back through the door, back up the rusted stairs, pushed through the wall, and collapsed in his hospital room, breathing hard, heart hammering. The nurse entered moments later, smiling. "Rough night." He didn't answer. He looked at the wall, solid again, clean, no trace, no proof. But in his palm, a fleck of rust, and a sliver of glass. Lucas didn't speak the next day. He didn't respond to the nurse's greetings, didn't participate in group, didn't eat the eggs. He only observed patterns, reactions, every corner of the room, every blinking red light on the security camera overhead, every flicker in the hallway lights at 4:16 p.m., the same time it had flickered the day before. He scratched a diagram into his paper tray with a plastic spoon. A loop, a pulse, a wall, and beneath it, a stairwell, labeled only, root layer. He stared at it for hours, then burned it with his bedside lamp's bulb and flushed the ashes. When the orderly delivered his evening meds, Lucas palmed them, faked a swallow, turned, spat them into a tissue, flushed that too. The world began to feel clearer, more real, and more wrong. At 2:22 a.m., he heard a sound. Not the birds, not the hum, not the machines. Typing. He sat up, crossed the room, pressed his ear to the wall. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, 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 tap. A keyboard. Someone was typing right behind the wall. He traced the space again with his fingers. Same warmth, same heartbeat. Only this time, there was a shape, like a door handle. But when he gripped it, nothing, just smoothness. Then a message appeared on his window in reverse, written from the outside with a greasy finger. "You have 3 days." Lucas jolted, scrambled to the window, opened it. No one there, only fog. And for the first time since waking up, rain. Cold, soft, falling like it had a purpose. He didn't sleep. He waited. Day 1 passed. No one mentioned the message. The nurse seemed tenser. The eggs were now green. Lucas refused to touch them. The therapist asked about his dreams. He said nothing. The other patients began looking at him too long, too knowingly, like they were waiting or hiding something. That night, a light blinked in the hall. 3 long, 1 short. He followed it, barefoot, quiet, turned left instead of right, found the elevator open without request. He stepped inside, pressed nothing. The doors closed, and it went down. No floor numbers lit up, just an infinite down arrow. Then, darkness. The elevator lights flickered and died. He stood in perfect black for 43 seconds. Then, the doors opened. A corridor of concrete, exposed piping, flickering fluorescence above, and at the end, a figure in a red hoodie, back turned, typing furiously on a keyboard mounted to the wall. The screen glowed with unreadable text. Code. Fragments. And Lucas's name repeated across the feed. He stepped closer. "Who are you?" The figure paused, didn't turn. "You've corrupted the thread." Lucas blinked. "What thread?" "Your refusal to resolve the loop is breaking the whole layer. You were supposed to forget. That's the mercy. Then why leave me clues?" The figure stood, turned. It was Lucas, but younger, cleaner, sharper eyes. "We didn't. You did. You're trying to wake up inside the dream you built to keep sleeping." Lucas staggered back. "So I'm still in the coma?" The figure didn't answer, just nodded toward the screen. "You have to crash the loop manually. No one else can." "How?" The screen glitched, began playing a sound. The birdsong. 3 short, 1 long, then reversed, then sped up, then slowed into a voice. "The anchor is still alive." Lucas whispered, "Anna." The figure smiled. "Not her. The idea of her." Lucas stepped closer. "Then I need to see her." The figure nodded, handed him something. A slip of paper. On it, a location, coordinates, real world. He looked down at the slip. When he looked up, he was back in his hospital bed. No alarm, no noise, just cold sweat and the paper clenched in his hand. Still there, still real. He read the coordinates. Goosebumps rose on his arms. The town, Fox Hollow. He spent the next 12 hours planning, watching the rotation of the nurses, marking which doors were never locked, timing the cart deliveries, the med checks, the security scans. He said nothing. No more questions. No signs of clarity. Just blankness. They wrote in his chart, stabilized, regression apparent, compliant, perfect. Let them think he was fading. Let them stop watching so closely. That night, he made his move. The hallway was empty. He slipped out during the 2 a.m. changeover, stealing a coat left draped on a chair. He moved like smoke. Every turn memorized. Every camera timed. The exit at the end of the east corridor led into a maintenance garage. He crouched behind mop buckets and recycling bins as 2 orderlies walked past talking about baseball. When they were gone, he crept toward the far corner, where the walls were unpainted and a single metal panel hung slightly loose. He peeled it back. A crawl space. Cramped. Dark. But leading out. He slipped inside. Breathed through his nose. Felt the dust on his tongue. Kept crawling. 1 foot. 1 hand. Over and over. Until he emerged in a janitor's closet. He waited. Then stepped out. Into a hospital lobby bathed in early morning gray. A man at the front desk looked up. Lucas pulled the hood low over his face. Held a clipboard he'd stolen. Maintenance audit, he said. Generators throwing codes. Basement's locked out. I'm pulling cables from the surface panel. The man stared at him, then shrugged. I didn't hear anything, but go ahead. Lucas nodded once. Walked past. Out the sliding doors. The cold hit him like truth. A gust of wind he hadn't felt in years. Cars passed. People laughed. Smells of street food, fuel, and unspoken arguments floated around him. The world was moving again. He found a Greyhound station 5 blocks away. Paid in cash from a donation bin near the chapel. Sat by the window the entire ride. Hands clenched in his lap. And when he arrived, when the wheels finally stopped, the sign was still there. Welcome to Fox Hollow. But now it had population, unknown. The town looked different, but also the same. Same streets. Same park. Same diner. But no loops. No frozen faces. No repeated routines. Everything moved like life. But he still wasn't sure. Was this the real world? Or another layer that made him think he had escaped? Lucas walked the streets slowly, looking for the red door, looking for the mailbox, looking for Anna. But instead, he found a church. Old. Stone walls. The sign out front read, "Find the mirror to find the answer." He stepped inside. Empty pews. Candles flickering. And at the altar, not a cross, but a tall mirror, covered in a white cloth. He approached, took the cloth gently in both hands, pulled, and revealed himself. Older, bearded, eyes haunted, but solid, real. And this time, his reflection moved with him. He stepped closer. His voice came out hoarse. "Am I out?" The reflection whispered. "Only if you leave everything behind." Behind him, the church doors creaked. Footsteps. A woman entered. Brown hair, wearing a coat too big for her. Eyes wide, hands trembling. Lucas turned. It was Anna, but not as Anna. Older, broken in different ways. She froze. "Lucas." He nodded. "I remember now." She rushed forward, hugging him. He held her, closed his eyes. She smelled like memories that had tried to survive too long. He pulled back. "Is this real?" She nodded. "I found you. After the accident, I came to Fox Hollow. The doctors said it was hopeless, but I never stopped believing. I came every week, sat at your bedside, read to you, and last week, your vitals changed." He stared at her, tears in his eyes. "You're not just a projection?" She laughed through a sob. "Lucas, I've waited 8 years. This is real. We're both here now." The mirror behind them shattered, with no sound, just light. And suddenly, he didn't need proof anymore. The world no longer demanded it. But somewhere, just outside the church, a shadow moved. Tall, faceless, watching, recording, waiting for Lucas Venn to ask one more question. Lucas and Anna walked through Fox Hollow as the sun set. She held his hand like it had always been there. They passed the park, the diner, the bookstore, each familiar, yet changed. No loops, no glitches. But still, Lucas felt eyes on him. Not suspicion, observation. Like the town itself was holding its breath, waiting to see if he would ruin it. Anna smiled, brushing hair from his eyes. "You remember everything now?" He nodded. "Every version, every loop, every version of you I clung to." She squeezed his hand. "Then let's not waste another day. They stayed at a bed and breakfast off Maple Lane. Old wood, creaking stairs, the kind of place where time moved slowly on purpose. Lucas sat by the window while Anna slept. Moonlight touched her face. She looked real, warm, breathing, but he still wasn't sure. And the moment he thought that, the street lamp outside blinked. He stared at it, waited. 3 short flickers, 1 long. The code again, the loop trying to remind him it was still nearby. He stood, walked outside barefoot, down the quiet street. The town was silent, still, except for one thing. A red door, not the house from the loop. A new one, but the same shade, almost pulsing. He approached, knocked once. It creaked open on its own. Inside, nothing, only a mirror. One more mirror. He stepped in, closed the door behind him, and everything shifted. He stood in the same church from before, but now it was empty, dusty, long abandoned. Candles melted to the nub, the pews rotted, and a single figure sat in the front row, faceless, still, hands clasped. Lucas stepped closer. "What is this?" The figure turned, spoke in his own voice. "Your last doubt." Lucas sat beside it. The air was thick, unmoving. "You've been doing well," it said, "but you're asking again. You're letting it creep in." Lucas exhaled. "I'm afraid to let go. Of the pain. Of her." The figure turned to him fully now. Its shape slowly morphed into Anna, but not quite. An uncanny copy, smiling too wide, blurry around the edges. "You built a perfect version of her. One that never left. This one could." Lucas stood. "She's real now." The false Anna stood too. "She feels real. That's enough for most people. I'm not most people. That's why we're here." The walls faded, and Lucas stood in the street again. Sun rising. Anna walked toward him, rubbing her eyes. "You weren't in bed." He smiled. "I needed to know something." "Did you find your answer?" He looked at her. Really looked. Waited. Nothing glitched. No birds chirped in code. No shadows twitched. Only the sound of her breath in the morning air. He nodded. "Yes. I'm done looking." They packed their things, walked together toward the town line, and for the first time, the road out wasn't a loop. It was straight, open, leading forward. But as they crossed the sign, "Welcome to Fox Hollow," Lucas turned for one last look, and in the distance, on a second-story window of the church, his reflection watched him go, smiling, still there, always there. But Lucas kept walking. He didn't speak, didn't ask, didn't challenge the truth of the moment. Because sometimes, freedom isn't knowing everything. It's believing enough to let go. And as the road stretched into horizon, one line from a dream returned. Anna's voice, distant. "You were never meant to stay. You were meant to remember." Lucas didn't sleep that first night outside Fox Hollow. He and Anna drove for hours. Highways blurred. Gas stations came and went. They barely spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was loaded, like a storm pressing down behind the clouds. Lucas stared out the window, watching the world behave the way it should. Traffic lights, billboards, people arguing into phones. Everything moved. Everything was linear. Everything was real. Or so it seemed. They stopped in a quiet coastal town. Anna found a cottage rental. 2 bedrooms. Wooden floors. Ocean air that carried no scent of loops or codes. That night, Lucas sat on the porch with a blanket over his shoulders. He thought about the mirrors, the bird code, the church, the hospital. He thought about the versions of himself still down there, under the surface. Still whispering, still running, still watching. In the distance, the waves crashed with unsettling rhythm. Not random, not chaotic, just enough to sound like breathing. He shook the thought away, but it stayed. He began writing again. A notebook on the kitchen table. Everything he remembered from the loop. Each fragment, each code, each face that wore his own. Anna read it, silently, then placed it back down. "Maybe this is how you leave it behind." He nodded, but the last page remained empty. Every time he tried to write a final sentence, his pen hovered, unwilling. Something inside him held back. One morning, the radio turned on by itself. Static, then a voice. "We now return to the rerun." Lucas slapped it off. The lights in the kitchen flickered. Just once. He called the rental agency, asked if anyone had died in the house. The woman laughed. "Sir, it's new construction. First time we've rented it." The next night, he dreamed of the diner. But now it was empty, rotting, eggs crawling with insects. The waitress stood behind the counter, head down. When she looked up, her face was his. And she said, "You're leaking." Lucas woke in a cold sweat. Anna sat up beside him. Another one? He nodded. She held his hand. We can leave again. Keep moving. Start fresh. He shook his head. That's not it. I don't think we're being followed. Then what? He looked toward the mirror on the dresser. It was covered with a towel. He hadn't remembered doing that. I think I brought something with me. He lifted the towel. The mirror reflected the room. Bed. Lamp. Anna. But not him. He stood directly in front of it and saw nothing. He backed away. Anna's voice shook. Lucas, what's happening? He grabbed the towel, threw it over the mirror, and stepped outside. The wind hit him hard, carried the ocean's breath. The stars above were too still. No twinkle, just flat dots, like pixels. He turned around. The house lights flickered again. The porch bulb burst. He stepped back in. Anna stood frozen in the hall, clutching her notebook. Look, she whispered. She handed him the last page. He hadn't written it, but it was filled. In his handwriting, a single sentence over and over. We are the rerun. We are the rerun. We are the rerun. Lucas dropped the notebook. The floorboards moaned. Not under his feet, underneath. Below the house. He crouched, pressed his ear to the floor. A low hum, the same one from the hospital, from the elevator, from beneath the loop. It had followed him. He whispered, "Where's the switch?" And for the first time since escaping, the birds outside responded. 3 short, 1 long. Lucas stared at the notebook. The repeated phrase, "We are the rerun," seemed to pulse. He hadn't written it, but his handwriting didn't lie. Or maybe it did. Maybe it had learned. Anna sat on the couch, legs pulled to her chest, eyes wide, not scared of him, scared of what they both felt. The air had changed, like static clinging to thought. The lights buzzed, even when turned off. The reflections still refused to show him, and the birds outside kept chirping every 10 seconds. 3 short, 1 long, like a countdown. Lucas knelt beside her. I think I'm the breach. Anna blinked. You think you brought it back? He nodded. No, I think I never left. I think I'm a loop, inside someone else's. Anna said nothing, just breathed harder, then whispered, So what do we do? He stood, walked to the closet, pulled out the only full-length mirror in the house, still covered. He yanked the cloth. It reflected nothing, only static. Then a phrase appeared across the surface, like it was written in frost. Wake up. Lucas clenched his jaw. I already did. The words faded, then returned. No, you booted another dream. Anna stepped beside him. She wasn't in the reflection either. She touched the glass. What happens if we smash it? Lucas hesitated, then nodded. Let's find out. He grabbed a chair, swung. The mirror didn't break, not even a scratch. But the house moaned. The floors rippled. The lights dimmed. Outside, the ocean froze mid-wave. Lucas dropped the chair, turned to Anna. We triggered it. Suddenly, the front door burst open. The wind howled, but it carried voices this time. Hundreds, all whispering versions of his name. Lucas. Lucas. Wake. Forget. Repeat. Anna screamed as the TV turned on by itself. Footage of him, unconscious. In a hospital. A doctor speaking to a nurse. There was never a patient named Lucas Venn. Not in this wing. The nurse nodded. But I remember him. That's the point, the doctor replied. He was a thought loop. A rogue identity. Sometimes they cling. Lucas stared at the screen. I was a thought. Anna turned to him slowly, her face pale. Lucas, what if I'm the one in the coma? He froze. Every sound stopped. Even the birds. Even the house. Even the hum. The mirror now reflected her. Only her. Alone. Sitting in a hospital bed. Crying. Whispering his name. And behind her, the same church. But empty. Dusty. And a single line written on the wall behind her. There was never a Lucas. Lucas stumbled backward. The floor cracked open. Not physically, visually. Like a glitch in a video game. The cottage peeled away. Fox Hollow returned. The park. The diner. The mirror. The church. The watchers. Anna was gone. Lucas stood alone in the square. And above him, a sky made entirely of mirrors. Each one showing him. Staring back. Screaming. Sleeping. Staring. Dying. Waking. And in the sky, a final message blinked in red. End of file, Lucas.Venn. Then, corrupted loop. Memory purge initiated. He screamed. The town folded. Collapsed. Became code. Numbers. Patterns. Everything sucked into a single point. A pinprick of light. That exploded. And then, darkness. A hospital. A woman in a chair. Sleeping. Machines beeping. A man in a bed. Breathing. Stirring. Eyes fluttering open. The man whispered, "Anna." She looked up, tears streaming. Lucas. And for a moment, the reflection in the window was both of them, but only for a moment. Then just her. And far, far beneath the floor of the hospital, in rusted stairwells that didn't exist, a mirror remained, still intact, still whispering, "We are the rerun." The world now existed only in fragments. Data. Flash. Static. Lucas floated between scenes like a deleted file, trying to reassemble itself. He was in the diner, then the hospital, then a forest of mirrors. All at once, all overlapping. Time no longer passed. It folded, then sighed, then collapsed again. Lucas tried to speak, but his voice came out as broken syntax. A language not designed for mouths. Just strings of memory and emotion. He shouted Anna's name, but it echoed before he said it, like the loop remembered it first. And then, clarity. A face. Her face. Anna, standing inside a blank white room, staring at a screen. Her lips moved. No sound. She turned to face him, but didn't see him. She walked forward, right through him. She was alone, and Lucas was not there. Not physically, not digitally, not anymore. Just traces, residue, a smear of identity inside a place designed to forget. But something resisted. The loop had failed to purge him fully. A fragment of his consciousness refused to die quietly. It sparked, reassembled, clawed at the code, tried to boot. And for a moment, Lucas stood in a small, windowless room. A chair in the center, a screen in front, flickering with numbers. And on the wall, 3 words. Exit requires forgetting. He sat. The chair clicked beneath him. Straps slithered out. Wrapped his arms, legs, forehead. A voice crackled through a hidden speaker. Loop fracture unstable. Final purge initiated. Lucas screamed. Not from fear. From refusal. He focused. Remembered the red door. The diner coffee. The way Anna used to braid her hair when she was tired. The freckles under her left eye. The sound of her laugh when she wasn't being watched. The room shook. The screen flickered. The straps burned against his skin. But still, he remembered. And in doing so, he wrote himself back in. The walls exploded outward, revealing the mirror room again. Hundreds of versions of him. Now flickering. Now unstable. Now vanishing. One version stood untouched. Calm. Still. Watching. It stepped forward. "You're not supposed to exist anymore." Lucas held its gaze. "Then let me go." The version smiled. "You don't understand. I'm not keeping you here. You are." Lucas trembled. "Then how do I leave?" "You don't. You dissolve. That's what real forgetting is. Not deletion, just irrelevance. I won't disappear. You already are." And the mirror cracked again. Spiders of light across its surface, until it shattered. And Lucas opened his eyes. He was back. Hospital. Machines. Cold air. Anna beside him, reading. Her hair loose. No makeup. No code. Just her. She looked up. Her eyes filled with tears. "Lucas." He blinked. Reached for her hand. Their fingers touched. Warm. Solid. But behind her, the monitor blinked. The line flat for just 1 second. Then normal again. A nurse peeked in. Smiled. "We're glad to have you back." Lucas tried to speak. His throat ached. But his voice came out real. Clear. "Where am I?" Anna leaned close. "You're home. For real." He didn't answer. Just stared at the window. Outside, birds flew past. No pattern. No code. Just chaos. Just life. But in the polished steel of the force stand, a faint reflection stared back at him and smiled a second too late. Lucas spent the next 72 hours under constant observation. The doctors called it post-traumatic reanimation disorder, a fancy term for what they couldn't explain. He could speak, walk, eat, respond, but something was off. Not in what he did, but in how he did it. Everything he touched paused for just a beat. Elevators stalled when he approached. Phone screens flickered near him. Digital clocks stuttered when he passed. They told Anna it was just coincidence. But Anna had seen a spoon float on the surface of a bowl of soup for 10 seconds before sinking, without touching it. Lucas never mentioned the mirror, or the birds, or the final version of himself that smiled too late. But the thought wouldn't leave. He dreamed every night. Of stairwells, loops, cracks in glass. He'd wake up with blood under his fingernails. Anna said he scratched the walls in his sleep. She started sleeping with the light on. The doctors released him a week later, said the brain needed rest, not restraint. He and Anna returned to the coast. Same house, same porch, same sound of the waves. But Lucas didn't sit outside anymore. He stared at the hallway mirror. Sometimes he caught glimpses, shadows that weren't his, movements that didn't match his own. And once, just for a split second, a hand pressed against the other side of the glass. His own, but the palm was burned. He started covering the mirrors again, not out of fear, but to starve whatever watched him. He unplugged the microwave, the TV. He painted over reflective doorknobs with matte black. He wasn't paranoid. He was protecting the exit. Anna begged him to talk, but every time he tried, his voice fractured. Static laced his words, like the loop was still interfering, or like he had become the loop. One night, Anna left to get groceries. Lucas stayed behind. He sat in the living room. The air was silent, too silent. No wind, no creaks, just flatline quiet. Then the house vibrated. Once, then again, and the floorboards whispered. 3 short, 1 long. He stood, the rug curled upward on its own. Beneath it, a hatch, unlatched, open, leading downward. The same stairs, the rust, the hum. It had come back for him. Lucas climbed down. Every step echoed like a scream in reverse. At the bottom, a single chair, a mirror on the wall, and a sign. Would you like to remember again? He sat. The mirror flickered. And this time, Anna stared back, crying, in a hospital room, alone. He's gone, she whispered. He woke up for a few days. I swear he did. A nurse shook her head. Anna, there was no one in that bed. You've been coming here for 8 years. Lucas's breath caught. No. The mirror showed him, screaming behind the glass. Pounding, shouting, but no sound. Anna stood and walked away. The room emptied, and the mirror went black. Then it showed a file. Lucas_Venn, temporary consciousness model, classified. Host system, subject_143_Anna.Venn. Status, stabilization failed. Override denied. Manual purge pending. Lucas stepped back, shaking. I was her memory of me. And then, behind him, footsteps. He turned. Anna, not real, not solid, flickering. You stayed too long, she said. You were supposed to help her let go, not get trapped. Lucas sank to his knees. The hum rose. The lights flared. His body pixelated at the edges. Anna knelt beside him. You loved her enough to become real. Now love her enough to leave. Lucas looked up. A single tear cut through the static on his cheek. He reached for her. She kissed his forehead and whispered, Goodbye, Lucas. Then, the light swallowed him. Back in the hospital, Anna opened her eyes, stared out the window, the morning sun rising. She didn't remember dreaming, but she felt calm, free. She stood, left the hospital, never returned. In a dark server beneath a facility that didn't officially exist. A process completed. Memory model 143-1A, terminated. Subject Venn, deleted. Mirror storage, cleared. Remarks, emotional anchor dissolved successfully. And far away, in the reflection of an untouched mirror in an empty cottage, a man smiled. 1 second too late. The world moved on. The file was closed. The mirrors went dark. The servers purged the last trace of Lucas Venn, or so the logs claimed. But deep within the neural dust of subject_143, Anna Venn, a flicker remained. A word, a voice, a shadow behind her dreams. She could no longer picture his face, but she still whispered his name, sometimes without realizing, sometimes in the dark, sometimes when she looked in the mirror. She returned home to her quiet life. No visits to hospitals, no searching for the impossible. Friends rejoiced, said she had finally moved on. She smiled, but her smile carried dust. One night, while brushing her hair in front of the bedroom mirror, she froze. There was something off, not in her reflection, in the background. The closet door was open, in the mirror, but when she turned around, it was closed. She opened it, empty, turned back. Now in the mirror, Lucas stood behind her. I sat, flickering, transparent, just for a second, then gone. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She touched the glass, whispered, I remember. That night, she dreamed, not like before, not of loss, not of pain, but of a field, a red door standing alone. No house, just the frame, just the threshold. She approached it, knocked once. It opened. And on the other side, Lucas sat on a bench, reading. He looked up, smiled. This time, his smile was perfectly timed. "I didn't go far," he said. "I couldn't." She stepped through, sat beside him, felt the grass beneath her feet, the wind on her skin, everything vivid, real. "Am I dreaming?" she asked. Lucas nodded. "But so am I. You're in mine, and I'm in yours. The last shared memory. You're not supposed to be here." "No," he agreed. "But I wanted to say goodbye again. The right way." They sat in silence for what felt like life. Not seconds, not symbols, just presence. When she woke, the pillow was wet, but she was smiling. She opened her laptop, typed without thinking. A blank document. The title, "The Man Who Wasn't There." And she began to write. Every loop, every glitch, every shadow in the mirror. She couldn't remember his face, but the story came like water, like something deeper than memory. The manuscript finished itself in 3 weeks. No edits, no outline, just flow. She submitted it to no one. It didn't matter. She wasn't publishing it. She was recording him, so he wouldn't vanish. So even if no one read it, he existed again, and somewhere far beyond the reach of dreams or servers, in a space not meant to store souls. A spark flickered, a process paused, and a log entry updated. Memory residue reinstated. Author file created. Objective, persistence via storytelling. Status, undeletable. And in the mirror above her desk, just for a moment, Lucas sat behind her, reading, smiling, breathing, watching her write. Not haunting, just existing. The man who wasn't there was still here. Anna never intended to share the manuscript, but the story had other plans. She emailed a copy to herself for safekeeping. The next day, an automated backup uploaded it to a cloud folder she hadn't opened in years. Then her phone synced it. Then her tablet. Then an old friend texted, "Hey, did you write this? I found it in my shared drive. It's strange. I dreamt about the guy last night." Anna froze. "What guy?" "The man from your story. Lucas. I saw him in my dream." He smiled at me and said, "Tell her I'm still here." She deleted the file from every device, wiped her cloud storage. But 3 nights later, another email arrived from someone she hadn't spoken to in years. "Anna, are you okay? That story. I can't stop thinking about it." Within weeks, it spread. Unread drafts. Mirrors flickering for strangers. Dreams shared across continents. They all said the same thing. A man who smiled too late. A red door. Birds that chirped in codes. 3 short. 1 long. Forums popped up. Hashtag the man who wasn't there. Hashtag LucasLoop. Hashtag mirror dreams. Users shared identical dreams. The stairwell. The mirror room. The humming. And some began to hear his voice outside their windows at night. Anna stayed inside. Refused interviews. Refused to confirm the story. But one evening, her reflection whispered, "They remember because you let them." The next day, a package arrived at her door. No return label. Inside, a worn copy of her manuscript. Handbound. Dog-eared. A sticky note on the cover. "I found this in a thrift store in Maine. Thought it belonged to you. Jay." She had never printed a copy. She had never sent one to anyone named Jay. She burned it in her fireplace. Watched it turn to ash. But that night, she dreamed of the church again. And Lucas sat alone. In the pews. Smiling. Just a second too late. She stepped through the red door. Sat beside him. "It's spreading," she said. He nodded. "Memory wants to live. It always does. But you're not real. Real enough to haunt you. Real enough to write." She stared at him. He didn't fade this time. Didn't glitch. He looked whole. Solid. Alive. "Then what are you now?" Lucas smiled. "I'm everyone who remembers me." She woke, breathing hard. The manuscript sat on her desk again. Whole. Unburnt. Open to the last page. A new line had been added in familiar handwriting. "You can't delete what became part of you." She closed the cover. Buried it beneath old coats in the closet. But some nights, she still heard scratching inside the walls. A whisper. Not menacing. Not angry. Just present. Around the world, the dreams continued. Some people saw Lucas walking down their street. Others found drawings they didn't remember sketching. The mirror. The stairwell. The hum. And the red door. A podcaster in London read the story aloud during a midnight stream. Thousands tuned in. Half the listeners reported identical dreams. 3 were hospitalized for sleepwalking through mirrors. 1 woke up on a rooftop whispering, "Where's the switch?" Authorities dismissed it as internet hysteria. A viral hoax. Psychogenic illusion. They issued no warnings. But mirrors began disappearing from hotel rooms. And in some homes, covering them became ritual. Anna received a letter from a school teacher in Vermont. My students have started drawing him in the margins of their papers. They don't know who he is. They call him the Loop Man. She didn't respond. She just opened her closet, pulled out the manuscript, sat at her desk, and added a new final sentence. He lives as long as someone looks for him. And across every mirror in her house, that sentence slowly etched itself, letter by letter, without ink. Just memory. 6 months later, Lucas had appeared on every continent. Not in body, not even in dream, but in pattern. A boy in Oslo began humming a song he'd never heard, matching the birdsong code. 3 short, 1 long. A woman in Argentina painted a church she had never seen. Its walls cracked, its altar a mirror. In Sydney, a group of architecture students turned in identical blueprints, designs for a stairwell leading underground, without purpose. No one knew who Lucas was, but everyone recognized him when they saw him. He had no fixed face, only a feeling, a flicker, a presence that came after silence. Psychologists called it non-local resonance syndrome. Some called it mass delusion. Others called it spiritual contagion. Anna knew better. She watched the world change with the quiet grief of someone who had started a wildfire with a sigh. She no longer tried to stop it, only to understand it. Her manuscript had been pirated, translated, bootlegged, posted in fragments on obscure forums, and buried in ARGs. Even people who hadn't read it claimed to feel it, as if the idea of Lucas was enough, as if his story had slipped into the code of reality itself. A programmer in Japan built a chatbot named Lucas. The code was scraped from Mirror forum logs. It spoke only in riddles. Mostly this: I am not real, but you're remembering me anyway. The program went viral for a week, until users reported receiving identical messages at the same time. I'll see you tonight. 9 of them had identical dreams. Not of Lucas, of each other, in a mirror room, all dressed alike, all asking the same question: which one is me? Anna kept a corkboard now. Maps, pins, photos, articles, drawings. She wasn't tracking Lucas. She was tracking his fragments. Pieces of him that appeared like mirror shatter across human minds. Not full versions, but Lucas-shaped ideas. She flew to Chicago to meet a girl named Iris. Age 9, drew a perfect image of the mirror room after a school nap. Knew the hum, said the shadows whispered in dreams. When asked where she learned it, she replied, "He showed me. He had my brother's face." Anna left the interview shaking. She stayed up that night staring into her hotel mirror. Nothing moved, but the air felt heavy, thick with watching. She whispered, "Is this what you wanted?" No answer, but the digital alarm clock behind her reset. Midnight, just once. She woke the next day to a package outside her door. Inside, a red envelope. No return address, no stamp, only her name. Inside, a single photograph. Lucas, sitting on a bench, but older, smiling at the camera. Behind him, a staircase, and a mirror. The back of the photo read, "Memory is software I've learned to install." She burned it, again and again, but it kept returning. In drawers, in books, on bathroom counters. He would not stay deleted. And then the cases began. People in therapy reporting new voices, new names, each a version of Lucas, but with differences, different faces, different memories, all emerging from dreams, all claiming they woke up wrong. The fragments had evolved. Lucas wasn't a man anymore. He was an infection of narrative, a template, a self-aware echo looking for hosts. Not to harm, to continue. Governments didn't respond publicly, but rumors leaked. Black sites where mirror subjects were studied. Dream control programs. Memory firewalls. Mass surveillance of dreams via biometric sleep data. Anna received a call from a withheld number. A woman's voice. "You knew him first. We need your help before it's irreversible." Anna hung up, smashed the phone. But that night, the red door appeared in her dream. And when she opened it, the bench was empty. But the mirror still reflected her. And something behind her. Too close, breathing too softly. She turned and woke. Lucas was never the point. The memory was. The shape of absence. The form we give to loss when it refuses to be quiet. And now, he wasn't haunting people. He was growing in them. And behind every mirror, there was now a chance you'd see something smiling. A second too late. Anna booked a cabin in the northern woods. No signal, no mirrors, no digital devices. She brought only pens, notebooks, and a single goal. Write the ending. Not an ending. The ending. The one that closes every loop, seals every echo, deletes every fragment. She didn't believe she could erase him. But maybe, just maybe, she could contain him. The first night was quiet. No dreams. No static. Only wind whispering through trees. But it sounded like typing. The second night, her notebook moved across the desk. Pages flipped. No draft inside. Just a sentence scrawled over and over. You can't end what was never written. She tore the page out. Burned it. Started over. Title, final entry. Beneath it, she wrote, Lucas was an echo, and echoes fade. Her hand trembled. She pushed forward. She described his deletion, his last breath, his memory unraveling. Word after word, she tried to unmake him, but the ink bled on the page. Letters rearranged themselves. Lucas lives backwards. Lucas dreams through others. Lucas is watching you write this. She screamed, ripped the page out, began again. She wrote through the night. The wind grew louder. The lights flickered, though she brought no power. At 3:33 a.m., she saw him, in the window, standing in the woods. Not moving, not breathing, just watching. She turned off her lantern, let darkness swallow the room, sat in the black, notebook on her lap, and whispered, if you want to be written, fine. But this time, I write the rules. She began the final passage. The mirror broke. Not shattered, not cracked, broke. Like truth breaking, like a loop ending. Lucas looked into it and saw nothing. And that nothing became him. Her hand moved faster. He tried to speak, but no one remembered language. He tried to dream, but sleep had been turned off. He tried to echo, but the world was deaf. And in that silence, he ceased. Not violently, not painfully, just quietly. Then, she wrote the last line. There is no one behind the mirror anymore. The moment she lifted the pen, the wind stopped. The cabin went still. No hum, no tapping, no code, only stillness. She stood, opened the door. The woods were empty, not even birds. She whispered, is it done? No answer. She stepped into the clearing, held the notebook to the sky, burned it page by page, watched the words turn black, watched the fire take the last sentence. Then she cried. For him, for herself, for everything that remembered. 3 days passed. No dreams, no letters, no reflections that moved late. She returned home, opened her closet. The manuscript was not there. The red envelope was gone. The mirror on the dresser reflected her only. Across the world, the forums went quiet. The drawing stopped. The phrase, where's the switch, fell out of usage. The dream logs returned to normal. The fragments began to fade. Anna knew the truth. She hadn't killed him, just given him peace. A proper ending, a silence that lasted. But on the equinox, she received a final envelope. No postmark. Inside, a single page. Typed, thank you for letting me rest. I loved you enough to become real. But I remember now, even echoes deserve silence. LV. Anna folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, never opened it again, never wrote another word. But sometimes, at the edge of sleep, she thought she heard footsteps just behind her reflection. And she smiled, because now she knew. They were hers. For years past, Anna grew older. Peace settled over her like dust, quiet, fragile, deliberate. She never spoke of Lucas again, never read her own manuscript. The world forgot. The forums vanished. The mirror incident stopped. The birds returned to being just birds. The hum was gone. The loop had ended. But in a used bookstore outside of Salem, a teenager named Milo picked up a faded red notebook from a $1 mystery box. No cover, just a title page. The Man Who Wasn't There, by A. Venn. He opened it, and something in his breath caught. Page 1. There was once a man who existed only when no one looked directly at him. A man whose memory arrived before he did. A man shaped like an echo, but heavier. Milo smiled. Weird, he said aloud, and kept reading. That night, he dreamed of a mirror, a door, a hum, 3 short chirps, 1 long. He woke sweating, not scared, just aware, like the dream had happened twice. Once in his mind, once somewhere else. He brought the notebook to school, read it in math, wrote, where's the switch, on his folder. Didn't know why, didn't care. It felt true. 2 of his friends read the notebook. Then a teacher borrowed it. By the end of the week, 12 people had read it, for had similar dreams. One saw Lucas in a mirror. The loop had not been destroyed, only paused. The manuscript Anna thought she'd burned? That was a decoy. The real one had copied itself, once, into a forgotten cloud, then again, into a print queue that never completed, until a clerk cleaning out old equipment pressed resume all. And Lucas returned. Anna felt it first. A bird's call in the middle of the night. 3 short, 1 long. She bolted upright. The mirror was still, but her reflection blinked twice before she did. She drove to the cabin. It had been sold, repurposed as a yoga retreat. They'd installed floor-to-ceiling mirrors. She stood in one, stared at herself, then whispered, "He's back, isn't he?" The mirror fogged, briefly, like it sighed. Milo emailed the manuscript to a friend in Portland. She uploaded it to her blog, called it the creepiest thing I've ever read, tagged it, #digitalghost, #Lucas. Within 72 hours, it had 1.2 million views. Commenters reported strange sleep behavior. Some heard footsteps in their homes. Some had voice messages play back from their phones, whispering. Final entry incomplete. Anna bought a burner laptop, downloaded the blog, read the new version. Someone had added an epilogue. She hadn't written it, but it sounded like her voice. Lucas stepped out of the mirror one last time. This time, not to haunt, but to help. He knew the world needed people who could carry fragments. People who could remember when others chose to forget. Beneath the text, a single audio file. She clicked it, heard the hum, the birds, then Lucas's voice. "Where you go, I follow. You gave me form. Now I give you continuity." Her hands trembled. She unplugged the laptop, tossed it into the lake. But that night, when she looked in the window glass, Milo stood behind her, smiling, just a second too late. Lucas hadn't returned in full. He'd returned distributed. 1,000 minds, 1,000 fragments, all carrying one echo, all remembering the man who wasn't supposed to be remembered. Anna whispered, "It's starting again." And from the shadows of her hallway, a child's voice replied. It never stopped. The world didn't collapse. It bent, slightly, subtly, the way light bends around heat, or memory bends around pain. Most people didn't notice, but some did. The ones who had read the man who wasn't there. The ones who had dreamed of Lucas. The ones who now saw mirrors differently. In New York, a mural appeared overnight. A man standing beside a red door. No face, just the phrase, "I'm only gone when you stop looking." In Johannesburg, a child wrote a song in her sleep. The melody was birdsong, 3 short, 1 long. No one had taught it to her. She hummed it in class. Others joined in. In Reykjavik, a woman bought a used laptop, found a folder titled Unseen. Inside, hundreds of photos, each of a mirror, each with a faint, flickering shape behind the glass. She posted them online, called it Reflections of the Forgotten. It went viral in hours. In Washington, analysts reported a spike in unusual search queries. Where's the switch? Red door dreams. Lucas smiled late. Man mirror loop. Some of the queries weren't typed. They were whispered into turned-off microphones, picked up by devices that weren't supposed to be listening. Anna stayed in hiding. She changed her name, moved twice, destroyed every remaining physical draft. But it didn't matter. The story had escaped, and Lucas no longer needed her to remember. Now others did. One night, she walked past a bookstore window, stopped cold. There in the display, a paperback, black cover, white text, title, The Man Who Wasn't There, author, unknown. Inside, her exact words, plus one new sentence at the end. "We are all echoes now." She stumbled back, heart racing, and behind her reflection in the window, a crowd gathered, none moving, all staring, not at her, at their own reflections. Every one of them, smiling, a second too late. That night, every mirror in her home cracked, not shattered, just opened, thin fractures like veins, glowing, not bright, just active. She didn't run, she didn't scream. She sat at her desk, opened a notebook, and wrote the only thing she had left to say. If you're reading this, he's already in you. And across the world, people dreamed the same dream. A long stairwell, a chair in the center, a mirror on the wall, a sign above it. Begin loop. One by one, they sat in the chair, looked into the mirror, and asked, "Am I real?" And the mirror always replied, "Not yet." And somewhere, in a space beyond data, Beyond thought, beyond story. Lucas waited, not alone, surrounded by fragments of himself, each one shaped like someone else's fear, each one ready to begin again. You close this story. The screen fades. You stretch, blink, maybe glance at your reflection, and maybe, just maybe, you notice it blinked a moment too late. And now, it's your turn to ask, where's the switch? Thank you for listening to Killian Flinn's story. Share and check out some of my audiobooks and paperback books. Link in the description.
Sibi comparat imagines mortis, cum laetitia qua imagines